The board will now come to order. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Middlebrook. Alderman Bosley. Alderman Moore. Alderwoman Hubbard. Alderwoman Ingracia. Alderman Kotar. Alderwoman Rice. Alderman Gunther. Here. Alderman Volmer. Present. Alderwoman Martin. Alderman Arnowitz. Alderwoman Murphy. Alderwoman Howard. Alderwoman Green. Alderman Oldenburg. Here. Alderman Rohde. Alderman Kennedy. Here. Alderwoman Davis. Alderwoman Spencer. Present. Alderman Muhammad. Alderman Boyd. Alderman Vaccaro. Present. Alderman Ogilvie. Here. Alderman Cohn. Present. Alderman Williamson. Here. Alderwoman Boyd. Alderwoman Navarro. Present. President Reed.
Here.
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderman Bosley. Alderman Moore. Alderwoman Hubbard. Alderman Coder. Alderwoman Martin. Alderman Arnowitz. Alderwoman Murphy. Alderman Rohde. Alderwoman Davis. Alderman Muhammad. Alderman Boyd. Alderwoman Boyd. You have 17 present, Mr. President. You have
Quorum being present, we will be led today in prayer by Reverend Dr. Doris Graham in honor of Delta Day in St. Louis City.
Good morning. Could we all bow our heads for a word of prayer? Heavenly Father, we bless your name. We give you glory on this wonderful morning. We thank you for the rain. We thank you for the sunshine. Most of all, we thank you for waking us up this morning. You didn't have to do it, but we're so glad you did. And here we are at the Board of Aldermen meeting, oh God. Won't you bless our leaders today? Bless our president, oh God. Won't you bless all of the Deltas who are in the house? Oh God, may this meeting be done decently and in order, and all minds will be clear to make good decisions on today. We thank you right now because thou art so good. We ask right now, oh God, that our leaders continue to remember the people who voted for them and put them in office, that they will be mindful to do the great things for this great city that need to be done. Hear our prayer, we ask in the mighty name of Jesus. Amen.
We'll spend with our regular order of business to take up our courtesy resolutions calendar. Alderman from the 19th, you're recognized on our courtesy resolutions calendar.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I move that we adopt our courtesy resolution calendar.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 19th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 27th. Alderman from the 19th, please, you'd like to approach the dais in honor of Delta Day.
I would like to give my to the Alderwoman from the 27th will lead us today.
All right. Alderwoman from the 27th, would like to approach the dais. In honor of Delta.
Good morning. This is a gracious day that we have today that we're celebrating, and it is Delta Day at City Hall. Everybody might see the rain out there, but I see a bunch of sunshine. And so let's, at this time, give them an applause. As a mother of a Delta, I am honored and I am proud. And so I look at all of the Deltas that we have here, and I look at me as being all of their mothers, and I look at them stepping up and recognize that the organization that they're a part of is about the community. And let's be real clear, it was created on that, to look at the community and step up to the plate and help them and the needs that they have in our city as in St. Louis. So at this time, I would like to recognize the two ladies that are up here. And if they have anything to say, I will be glad to hear it.
Good morning. On behalf of the St. Louis Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority and the Metropolitan Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, I bring greetings to President Lewis Reed and all the aldermen and alderwomen gathered here this morning. My name is Phyllis Russell Smith, and I am the president of this St. Louis Alumni Phenomenal Chapter. Today marks the 18th annual Delta Days at City Hall. We have held this event for so many years, we feel like we are part of your aldermanic family. As with our Evening with County Council, we enjoy meeting with the seasoned aldermen and women, meeting the new ones, and hearing about the fresh new ideas and initiatives they would like to see for the city of St. Louis. It is here where we learn the plans for gun control, reducing crime, rebuilding and expansions, plan for our wonderful Forest Park, and whether we will join the county to forever change the footprint of St. Louis. We hear about new businesses coming to our city and learn about old ones that are building additional sites. Here is where we met the first woman mayor of St. Louis, Mayor Lyda Krewson. All of these things make us excited to be residents of this great city. However, along with this excitement comes concern. We are concerned about exactly what is being done to control the violence that plagues our city. What is being done to continue to encourage new companies to start up in our city? What is being done about all the abandoned buildings? And what incentives are being offered to allow ownership of them or simply tear them down? What is being done about the disparity of South City versus North City? Whatever these answers are, please know that you have a partner in Delta Sigma Theta, and we are ready to assist in any way we can. Thank you again for allowing us to be part of your Friday morning, and thank you again for 18 years of working together.
President Reed.
You want to come up?
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Rochelle Clark, and as the president of the St. Louis Metropolitan Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, I ditto everything my sister has just said. We work together in both the city and the county, but our mission has us committed to providing community service, to an emphasis on the Black community, but the whole community is who we actually serve. So again, I thank you for allowing us to be here and look forward to hearing the interesting discussions that I'm sure we'll hear this morning. Thank you again.
I need to apologize to the Deltas that we have no air conditioning in here. I'm hot today. I shouldn't have taken that run this morning because it's sweating. So again, I just want to thank the Deltas for all they do each and every day on behalf of people throughout not just the city and the metropolitan area, but in cities all across America. for our system of democracy to work, that takes a voice and that takes involvement from the community and from the outside. And that's what shapes the laws that we ultimately adopt. And when you have a strong partner like the Deltas, you stand a fighting chance of enacting laws that will hit the mark, that will change people's lives in a significant way. So as a father of four, I just want to thank you. Because I know how difficult it is to raise kids in today's environment and to assure their success. But with the Deltas on the field, who has put a woman in outer space, I think, am I right? Yeah. Right. This is the sorority that made it, that came from. So again, thank you for all that you do on behalf of people all throughout our community, all throughout the region and across the United States, and on behalf of my family and friends and the members of this Board of Aldermen in the City of St. Louis, congratulations on a job well done.
Thank you.
Talk about the resolution. Alderwoman Davis, could you join us up here also?
You don't have his glasses.
Yeah, there you go.
So you want me to say something while she's coming up?
Don't fall. I was just going to say don't fall.
Come by me. It's my mentor. She got to be by me. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Delta Day at St. Louis City Hall. Whereas Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, Inc. was founded on January 13, 1913 by 22 visionary women at Howard University. Whereas since that day, for over 100 years, Delta members have been actively involved in almost every major social movement in the United States. The first public act performed by the Delta founders involved their participation in the historic Women's Suffrage March in Washington, D.C. during March of 1913. Originally chartered as Lambda Sigma, the St. Louis alumni chapter of Delta Sigma Theta has been committed to the public service for over 90 years, and every Delta uses her influence for the enactment of laws to protect the unfortunate and for repeal of those laws which deprive human beings of their privileges and rights. And Delta Sigma Theta is increasingly involved in important issues at the local, state, and federal levels and global issues. Recently received special consultative status with the United Nations. And on Friday, May the 18th, 2018, Deltas from throughout the St. Louis metropolitan area will gather to celebrate the annual Delta Day at St. Louis City Hall. Now therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Aldermen of the City of St. Louis that we pause in our deliberations to recognize and honor the members of the St. Louis Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, and we thank them for their tireless efforts on behalf of the citizens of this community, and redirect the clerk of this board to prepare a commemorative copy of this resolution to the end that it may be presented to our honorees at a time and place deemed appropriate by the sponsor. Introduced the 18th day of May 2018 by Honorable Pam Boyd, Alderwoman 27th Ward, Louis Reed, President of the Board of Aldermen, and Marlene Davis, Alderwoman of the 19th Ward. And that says little to what we feel as legislators in honoring the Deltas. And I want to personally and publicly thank them because they helped my daughter to grow into a woman of character and helped her to understand the importance of what this sorority stands for.
Amen.
Amen. president has determined that I am going to play a role today, okay? I'm trying to share. But I wanted to acknowledge again that we need to recognize that Deltas live all over this region, most especially in the city of St. Louis. They probably cover every ward. So you have constituents standing before you who are very much involved in the city of St. Louis and this region as a whole. They represent every profession that you could dream of, most especially educators and healthcare providers. They're nurses, doctors, teachers, engineers, chemistry, science majors, you name it, they cover it. So one of the things I've always learned and enjoyed in working with them over the years, whether it was in my neighborhood or as president of the school board or whatever the role is that they're dedicated. They get the job done. They are there for you. So again, I shall say thank you too. Thank you.
Alderman of the 25th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to extend my welcome to all of the wonderful members of Delta. You all have contributed so much to the wonderful fabric of this city and this region and the state as well. I remember when I first got elected down here as an alderman, I spent a lot of time going back and forth between St. Louis and Jefferson City. And I had the wonderful occasion to be down in Jefferson City on a Delta day when the entire Capitol had been flooded with members of Delta. And I know that you all are committed and passionate towards education, healthcare, engineering, science, etc. And I personally also have friends and neighbors who are members of Delta, and their service to our community shines through in everything that they do. I cannot thank you all enough for all of the contributions that you have made to our city. It's absolutely wonderful. I'm so grateful to have you down here. I'm sorry I'm not wearing red. I woke up this morning feeling a little blue, and my colleague from the 27th Ward is right. You know, coming down here and seeing all of you is just a breath of fresh air and some sunshine. So thank you for everything from the bottom of my heart that you do for the city of St. Louis.
Alderwoman from the 14th.
Good morning, Delta ladies. It's wonderful to host you today. I know a lot of you, Dr. Graham. We have a long history together with St. Louis Public Schools, and I see a few other familiar faces that have passed through the halls and we've worked together. You've contributed a lot to the area. You continue to contribute. I'm proud to have been serving with you, have served with you, and you go, girls. Thank you.
Alderman from the 26th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I'd also like to ditto the comments that some of my colleagues have made. The Deltas have done an excellent job throughout the city of St. Louis and our community, but I also want to give a special shout out to a resident of mine and a neighbor, Mrs. Clark, who's done a lot in our community, and she's been a cornerstone in our community for so many years. You've done an excellent job, Ms. Clark, and we want to appreciate all the work you did and keep up the good work, all the Deltas. Thank you.
Thanks, Brandon.
Alderman from the 25th.
Back, Mr. President. I was remiss. I actually meant to ask, could we pass this in bank, please?
Been moved by the Alderman from 25th and seconded by the Alderman from 26. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Clerk, please create another copy of this resolution in bank. Alderman from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thanks. It's always lovely to see all of you women down here and your dedication to St. Louis. I wanted to give a special shout out to 6th Ward resident and my friend Tony Cousins.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? All right, on behalf of the city, I just want to thank the Deltas. I'm looking forward to talking to you a little bit later. Oh, Alderman from the 18th, I was going to push you to get to the mic one way or the other. Alderman from the 18th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was just over here dancing to you, saw me. What a group of phenomenal women. It is certainly a pleasure and a light in the chambers to see you here today. I'd like to recognize all of you, but I have two constituents. Where is she? Margaret Williams. There she is right there, one of our constituents in the 18th Ward. And usually you have Kay Palmer with you. I didn't see her here today. but the Deltas have contributed to this city and to this country in such a manner that has made a difference in the lives of everyday individuals. It is a pleasure to have you here and to speak of your contribution to our community. Now, I have sisters and cousins who are all Deltas. You know, my sister Joyce Kennedy and my cousin Christina Bruce were all Deltas. And I have seen what they've gone through and how mean they can be to the pledgees. But that helps build the character.
That's right.
And that helps these individual women to become women. And your work of doing that on behalf of our community is outstanding and is of great notoriety. And so it is my pleasure to stand today to give you words of accolades and to point out to all of those who are in the earshot and who will see this in the media that the Deltas are in City Hall today.
All right.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Thanks, ladies of the Delta. We have the resolution here for you. We also have our lapel pins that we're going to give to each and every one of you for today, which is our official Board of Aldermen pin that goes through the history of this entire board. And Alderman Kennedy, our floor majority leader, will join us a little bit later for the presentation of those pins. And we also have with us our license collector.
Yes, she's a Delta.
She's Delta. You don't want to say anything? All right. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And again, I apologize for no air conditioning today. All right, thank you.
So what are you trying to do? Go that way. Okay. We'll do it over another room where it's cooler. Yeah. Yeah. No, we're going to do it in another room where it's cooler.
Yeah, because
I don't want someone to fall out.
No, I'm okay, but I don't want you all standing up. Come on, I'm the only one sweating.
Oh, no, you ain't the only one. Look at this.
Marlene's sweating. I'm not sweating.
Yeah.
Marlene, you are, baby. Yeah, you're sweating.
I don't know why you all sweating. Cool. Alderman from the 23rd. Okay. Alderman from the 23rd, would you like to approach the dais?
So, a couple people asked me, how did I come across this group? They're downtown. I would like you to sit back and imagine you've just gotten out of jail, you're going to apply for a job, you're a convicted felon, you have no money, no clothes, and just what you get whenever you get out of prison. This group, Laughing Bear, is put together, and it's nothing funny about it. It put together people that are behind me. These are all, I guess the word would be ex-cons, or had all been in the system. Yet, but bakers, yes. Well, now they're bakers. But these are people that have been in the system, and had it not been for Laughing Bear, would not have had an opportunity to be getting trained. I read this article in the paper about them, and if there's any group out there that should be honored, it's this group. I think this is something that we should be thinking inside of our jail that this kind of a program should be, and God bless them for putting this together. So far, they've had 18 people that they've hired and only one that went back in the system. When they go out and they look for jobs, now they can add that they've actually worked. Some other people have gone on and got decent paying jobs. They can help them get things like simple things that we can get, birth certificates, clothes, money, all the things you need to get a job. So a couple people like said, well, Joe, they're downtown. That's not in your ward. Why are you doing this? Again, I read the article in the paper. It speaks to everything that we need to be doing as a Board of Aldermen, that we need to be doing with our jail system. We have a kitchen there. We're not doing anything, in my opinion, to help the people that need our help the most. I'm going to let them speak to it, but you know, the resolution speaks for itself. But that's what this resolution is about, honoring a group of people that are thinking outside the box, that when someone comes to them and says, I've been in the system, they're going to teach them how to bake and how to become productive citizens. I'm going to let whoever wants to come up and speak.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you all for having us. Joe gave a pretty good synopsis of who we are and what we're about. Our founder, Carlene McAllister, back here, when she was a chaplain at the Farmington Correctional Center, had offenders come to her with tears in her eyes about, I got nothing waiting for me. I'm doomed to return unless I have some options. And she decided, I'm going to do something about it. When she retired, she began. She didn't put together funding, put together a game plan, a business plan. She just started. Now, how often does that happen? We started with one offender, ex-offender. I've still not come up with a perfect name for these people because they're no longer offenders. These are now law-abiding, tax-paying citizens. 17 out of 18. And that most certainly beats the odds. We've been around for about 2.5 years now, and things are going well. We're in a few more businesses selling our products, and I hope everybody that wanted a sample got a sample. If you leave it laying on the desk, it might turn up missing because the stuff's addictive. It's called bear candy. Anyway, that's who we are, what we're about, our success rate, and we really appreciate the opportunity to be here and talk to you all today. Thank you.
And then that speaks and that's it.
I just wanted to say that meeting Kaylin and learning about the bakery is one of the most influential experiences of my life. And I struggled for a long time trying to find employment after I had a felony conviction on my record. And it's the most crucial part of getting out and getting your life back together is finding employment. It's the basis of everything, and it's actually probably the hardest hurdle to overcome. And Kaylin's found a solution to a problem, and we just appreciate the city's support and everything that's going on.
Quickly, and then Lewis will wrap us up.
We're located at Centenary United Methodist Church, which is just about 3 blocks away from here. We're there on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I'm there on Wednesday. If you want to come by and get something good to eat. We have our products in Straub's, in Farm to You, in the Smokehouse in Chesterfield, and we're starting to get them in different stores and areas around. Thank you.
Alderman from the 25th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to stand here today and congratulate everyone who is part of this wonderful organization and the work that you're doing. I think that that's absolutely fantastic. And for those of you that have been incarcerated and are now outliving productive lives. Thank you and congratulations to you as well. I spend a lot of my time down here talking about social justice. I talk a lot about making sure that we prevent mass incarceration amongst folks. I think that we have a lot of opportunity as a city and as a state to advance those causes as well. Making sure that we have adequate education systems, before and after school daycare, and before and after school education curriculum. I think it's also important that we focus on health disparities and making sure that people have access to quality health care. Also, people who are actually working a 40-hour work week should make more than minimum wage is currently right now. Minimum wage is below the poverty level, and I think it's absolutely deplorable that people who are working more than 40 hours a week aren't able to make ends meet, to put a roof over their head, food in their stomachs, and clothes on their back. I think that that's absolutely unacceptable. It's un-American, and we need to do something about that. But I think also, as it pertains to the fine people that are up here today, ban the box. For those of you that aren't familiar with that, we need to start passing legislation in this state and in this country to ban the box. We have one of the highest felony conviction rates of any civilized nation on earth. And yet we penalize people who have paid their debt to society by limiting their opportunities for employment after they have paid their debt to society. And I think that that's absolutely appalling. Almost any place you go to apply has a question on their application whether or not you've been convicted of a felony. That's an automatic question that they ask on all these applications, and it basically disqualifies you from employment with many of these places as a result. So, we as a city, have banned the box on our own application as the city of St. Louis as an employer. I think that we can continue to do better. And I wish you all the best in your future. And if there's anything we can do from a public policy perspective or otherwise for you, we are always at your disposal. So thank you very much for everything that you've done to contribute to this city, and hopefully in the years ahead as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you all. Alderwoman from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to say congratulations to all of you. I commend you for the work you're doing and being down here. This sort of reminds me of a mini Homeboy Industries based out of Los Angeles. And just wanted to let you know if I can do anything to be helpful in you furthering your mission, or for any of you reacclimating into St. Louis City, please keep me posted. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Alderman from the 25th.
I'm doing like a two-take
I know,
day
that's
today.
okay.
I don't know what's wrong with me. But I did have the opportunity to sample some of the bear treats or bear candy, and they are actually really, really yummy. So for any of you that haven't had it before, certainly encourage you. There's a website on here, laughingbearbakery.org. So hopefully, there's some folks watching out there that'll visit the website and come and purchase some more goodies from you all. These are very, very tasty. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Also, just want to say thanks to Reverend McAllister and her team, and also congratulations to all the 17 that have currently come through the program and others that will join in the future. One way, it dawns on me, one way we can help to expand this program. You heard the list that Reverend McAllister put out there in terms of places we can purchase the product. From St. Louis Cinemas to Galleria, the Moolah, the Chase Theater, Smokehouse in Chesterfield. Some of these places, when you go there, buy the product. When we're working on new stores within our prospective areas across the city of St. Louis, let's encourage them to use Laughing Bear Bakery so that they will continue to expand their operations. We talk about the importance of the reentry programs. This is a major program in the city of St. Louis that's working, and it's going to require us to get behind it and help to support it so that it can expand, so that people will have that second chance. We should not expect people to do better if we're not giving them the opportunities to lift themselves out of the current situation they're in and to overcome some of the things that have happened prior to them going out and searching for new employment. So I'm hoping that each and every one of you hear that call. And for those stores and those different things that you're working on throughout your wards, reach out to them right now and ask them to begin to use Laughing Bear Bakery to make a difference in our city. Congratulations on job well done and everything. Yes. You want to present it? Yeah. So this resolution is the highest honor the board has to give any organization or individual. And what it does, it cements in time some of that organization or individual's many contributions up until that point in time. So 100, 200 years from now, when you go back and research the rebirth and the renaissance of the city of St. Louis, you will read amongst those records Laughing Bear Bakery and know that you made a difference. And we pause in our deliberations this day to make sure that you're recognized for a job well done. Alderman from the 17th, I'd like to approach the dais.
We'll get something. We'll just do this one then for right now. Mr. President, members of the board, one of the great things about being an alderman is when something happens good in your district, a lot of people look towards you to congratulate you on that. And of course, being the astute politician that I am, I readily attribute any good thing that happens in my ward to inspired local political leadership. And one of the things that has happened in my ward, in reality that's not the case. One of the great things that's happened in my ward has been the rebirth of the Grove, the stretch of Manchester. And in reality it's not just political leadership, it's a lot of people who really kind of believe in a vision or believe in what they're doing. And for us, you know, redeveloping a block might involve a little bit of our time, but to really have it done requires people who are willing to, you know, invest significant portions of their money or their life or their time and so forth. And as a result of that, there's a whole lot of people that contribute to something like that. And today I wanted to take pause and just recognize one of them, or actually two of them. There's a gentleman, Guy Slay, who has spent a great deal of time on Manchester, investing in property over there. And he is like the Pied Piper. He goes out and he finds people that share his enthusiasm for the block, and then they move their businesses there, and then they basically invest their life in their business, trying to make them successful. And when you get enough people like that together, some real differences can happen. And that's been the case on Manchester. And today we wanted to recognize one of those, a gentleman by the name of Eric Outlaw, who a few years ago moved his business to Manchester and has made just a huge difference in it. He has been a proud business owner, got involved with the business organization and the SID, and has been one of the real stabilizing forces on Manchester and has contributed greatly to the district's identity and branding and success. And so he is down here today, and if it's all right, perhaps, Mr. Clerk, if you could read the resolution for us. I need to give that back to you. Yeah.
Whereas Mr. Eric M. Outlaw is a proud and loving father to his infant son, Edris Michael Outlaw. He is also a proud and loving son to his mother, Mildred, and his late father, Eddie Outlaw. And whereas Eric M. Outlaw earned the respect and gratitude from the leadership of Washington University and St. Louis University's redevelopment corporations. And whereas Mr. Outlaw is a reliable partner in the Grove who has served on various Grove CID, marketing, and special events committees which have impacted the quality of life of Grove residents, businesses, and visitors. And whereas Mr. Outlaw has proudly served as a successful and exemplary business role model for African American youth, demonstrating ethics and integrity with the 12-year operation of a successful business. And whereas Mr. Outlaw has played a vital role in the rebirth of the Grove, a thriving and highly sought-after St. Louis neighborhood now, which attracts visitors from all over the world. The Grove has become one of the nation's best case studies for a diverse urban renaissance. And whereas Mr. Outlaw has remained true to his guiding principles of acute inclusion as he joyfully celebrates and advocates daily for diversity. And whereas Mr. Outlaw, the great community builder, will now bring his vast experience, knowledge, and network to Old North St. Louis to contribute it to its vitality. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Aldermen of the City of St. Louis that we pause in our deliberations to recognize and thank Mr. Eric M. Outlaw for his significant contributions to the City of St. Louis, and we further direct the clerk of this board to spread a copy of this resolution across the minutes of these proceedings and to prepare a commemorative copy to the end that it may be presented to our honoree at a time and place deemed appropriate by the sponsor.
How everybody's doing. I'd like to thank Joe Rody. I would like to thank Guy Slay. And, you want to say something too? Okay. I'd like to thank Louis Reed, and I'd like to thank the Alderman Board for this opportunity. It's a great privilege to try to serve St. Louis community. That's been my passion, to try to come into communities and try to build relationships between different people. And for the record, I see that it works. No, it really works. And I plan on doing another 10, 12 years or plus in Old North St. Louis. And this is just my passion. I love to do it. I love to serve people. I'm a spiritual person, and that's how I continue going on every day. I'd like to give a thanks and a shout out to some of the aldermen that may not remember me, but I'd like to shout out Alderman Kennedy. He was one of the first aldermen that gave me opportunity in Central West End. I'd like to shout out Senior Bosley. He was the second to give me an opportunity. And thirdly, Joe Rody for giving me an opportunity. And now fourth, Tamika Hubbard for giving me the opportunity. I'd just like to say thank you for the opportunity and this award I'm getting. It's really a true blessing for me. I never expected it to come. And thanks to Guy Slay and the Mangrove Development Property, I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
I was just going to say that we also have a proclamation from the mayor's office today recognizing your contribution, Eric. We really, appreciate all that you've done, and so great that you have such a wonderful family. So thank you. Yep.
Any further, Alderman from the 12th?
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I would like to also personally thank you for your hard work and dedication in the community. It says a lot about you as a person, and hope we can keep moving forward. And Mr. President, at this time, if there's no objections, I'd like to ask that the resolution be embanked.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 12th that we make this resolution embanked. Entertain a second. Seconded by the Alderman from 27th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Clerk, please prepare another copy of this resolution in bank.
So noted.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Alderwoman from the 5th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I would just like to get up and personally thank Mr. Outlaw. I'm so proud of him. I mean, we have a long history, and I've seen him become the person that he is today. And however I can support you again, I'll definitely do that. And I'm proud of you and your family. And I know you have some other battles that you're dealing with too. And I just want you to know that I'll keep you lifted in prayer, and you can always count on my support.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? I also just want to tell you special thanks and congratulations. You know, and you've heard earlier that I said I'm Father for it. Just makes me feel so, you know, good inside when I see our young people out there working to make a difference in neighborhoods all across our city. So I just want to thank you for doing what you've done, staying in the fight and making a difference in our city. Your works will be long remembered, you know, because you have created some change in neighborhoods that wasn't there before. And when you make that kind of mark, that lives on beyond any of us here. So congratulations and thanks for a job well done. Let's give Mr. Outlaw a big round of applause, him and his team. It's been moved and seconded that we adopt our courtesy resolution calendar. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. With that, we'll return to our regular order of business. Introduction of honored guests. Any introduction of honored guests? Alderwoman from the 14th.
Yes, Mr. President and esteemed colleagues, I'd like to have as my honored guest Demetrius Alfred from Local 73, firefighters Clinton McBride from Laborers Union, Megan McBride from the Kelly Group, and Lou Hamilton from Centrex.
Alderwoman from the 8th.
I would like to have as my honored guest Mr. Damon Alexander, who, oh, he's back here. He is a resident of the 8th Ward. He is going to be a graduate of SLU High School this coming weekend, and he's also one of the organizers for the March for Our Lives and the St. Louis High School Democrats. Thank you.
Alderman from the 21st.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to welcome a
a former member of this body, the former Alderwoman of the 21st Ward, the Honorable Bernice Jones-King.
Alderman from 25th.
Mr. President, I would like to welcome Nancy Cross from Service Employees International Union and Kim Sella from Citizens for Modern Transit as my honored guest this morning. Thank you.
Alderman from the 27th.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I'd like to recognize and honor my husband, Nathan Boyd, who is my honored guest this morning, and thank him for being patient with me from us running. And then, two, I'd like to recognize Frederick Searcy with Plumber and Fitters, and I also want to recognize the Deltas.
Alderman from the 1st.
Mr. President, members of the board, I'd like as my honored guest, Mr. Sterling Adams, not Miller, Sterling Adams, who is not my husband, but has been my constituent for many, many years. I also would like to recognize Bernice Jones, former 21st Ward Alderwoman, Bernice Jones-King. We served many years together. I also would like all the Deltas to be my guests, along with my second husband, Nathan Boyd, who's one of my great friends.
All right. Alderman from the 16th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I have a couple special guests this morning. First, I'd like to introduce Mr. Anthony Lancia from the AGC. Also, special guest and intern extraordinaire, 16th Ward constituent, Mr. Nick Kimball. Thank you.
Alderman from the 23rd.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, I'd like to hear from the Home Building Association, Alec Scharf, where they're somewhere over there. And I would also like to have Jeff Hans from the Carpenters Union with me. And I believe that's it.
Alderman from the 3rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, members of the board and everyone in the room. I would like to have as my honored guest, committee woman of the 3rd Ward, Lucinda Frazier, Miss Maggie Hoare Bryant from Communities First, and Linda Primer, where is Linda? From Communities First, and also our 3rd Ward residents up top here. I can't see everybody, like Miss May up there, Miss Merlin. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further introduction? Alderman from the 18th.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, I'd like to welcome as my special guest here today, Mr. Al Willis, who's standing behind me, Mr. Leroy Grant, all 18th Ward residents, Mr. Darrell Piggy, our committeeman, Jesse Todd, Reverend Lyles, and the Reverend Oscar Brown, all from the 18th Ward here today.
All right. Welcome to them today. Any further introductions? Any further introductions? Alderman from the 10th, would like to wrap us up. Where did Alderman from the 10th? All right. All right. We'll pass on. All right. Alderman from the 18th, you recognized on approval of the minutes.
Mr. President, members of the board, I move that we approve the minutes of the May 5th and 11th meetings.
Moved by Alderman from the 18th. Entertain a second on that motion. Seconded by the Alderman from the 23rd. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Report of city officials.
Copies of report of the city officials, section A and C, have been placed in all of the aldermen's mailboxes. From the office of the mayor, I have the pleasure to submit the following individuals for reappointment to the Carondelet Commons Community Improvement District. The reappointment of Mr. Kevin Morrell, whose property is located in the 11th Ward and whose term will expire December 31st, 2020. The reappointment of Mr. Brian Pratt, whose property is located in the 11th Ward and whose term will expire December 31st, 2020. I respectfully request your approval of the reappointments.
Alderwoman from the 11th, you recognize on the mayor's appointment to the Carondelet Commons Community Improvement District.
Hi, thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make this motion, please.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 11th. Entertain a second on the motion. Seconded by the Alderman from the 16th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Dear members of the Board of Aldermen, I have the pleasure to submit the following individuals for reappointment to the Cary Avenue Community Improvement District. The reappointment of Mr. Philip Hulse, whose property is located in the 2nd Ward and whose term will expire on April 25th, 2022. The reappointment of Mr. Kevin Morrell, whose property is located in the 2nd Ward and whose term will expire April 25th, 2022. The reappointment of Mr. Brian Pratt, whose property is located in the 2nd Ward and whose term will expire on April 25, 2020. The reappointment of Mr. Pete Arman, whose property is located in the 2nd Ward and whose term will expire on April 25, 2020. The appointment of Ms. Nicole Blumner, whose property is located in the 2nd Ward and whose term will expire April 25, 2020. I respectfully request your approval of the appointments.
Alderman from the 2nd, you recognize on the mayor's appointment to the Cary Avenue Community Improvement District.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we approve the mayor's appointments to the Cary Avenue Community Improvement District.
Moved by the Alderman from the 2nd, seconded by the Alderman from the 25th. Any discussion? Alderman from the 1st.
Mr. President, members of the board, if the Alderwoman from the 2nd would yield.
Alderman from the 2nd, will you yield to question from the Alderman from the 1st?
Yes, I will.
Alderman from the 1st, please proceed.
Thank you. Alderwoman, the reason why I'm asking you to yield is because I am working on a rule right now about the mayor's nominations and to boards and commissions, of which he does 50 or 60. I don't really want to address the small community improvements, and I just wanted to ask you, this is all in the 2nd Ward, right? This is a community.
Yes, it is.
That's not covering any other ward, just the 2nd Ward?
Just the 2nd Ward.
I have no further questions.
All right, thanks. It's been moved by the Alderman from the 2nd, seconded by the Alderman from the 25th, that we approve the mayor's appointment to the Cary Avenue Community Improvement District. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries.
Dear members of the board, I have the pleasure to submit the following individuals for reappointment to the 1601 South Jefferson Community Improvement District. The reappointment of Mr. Philip Hulse, whose property is located in the 6th Ward and whose term will expire on March 28, 2020. The reappointment of Mr. Kevin Morrell, whose property is located in the 6th Ward and whose term will expire March 28, 2020. The reappointment of Mr. Brian Pratt, whose property is located in the 6th Ward and whose term will expire on March 28, 2022. The appointment of Ms. Elizabeth Austin, whose property is located in the 6th Ward and whose term will expire on March 28, 2022. The appointment of Ms. Nicole Blumner, whose property is located in the 6th Ward and whose term will expire on March 28, 2022. I respectfully request your approval of the appointments.
Alderman from the 6th, you recognize on the mayor's appointment to the 1601 South Jefferson Community Improvement District.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we adopt these recommendations from the mayor's office.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 6th. I entertain a second on the motion, seconded by the Alderman from the 12th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Dear members of the board, I have the pleasure to submit the following individuals for appointment to the Cathedral Square Special Business District Board. The appointment of Mr. Kenneth Sowell, who resides in the 28th Ward and whose term will expire on December 31st, 2018. I respectfully request your approval of these appointments.
Alderman from the 28th, you recognize on the mayor's appointment to the Cathedral Square Special Business District.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we approve the appointment of Kenneth Sowell to the Cathedral Square Special Business District.
Moved by the Alderman from the 28th, seconded by the Alderman from the 25th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Dear members of the board, I have the pleasure to submit the following individuals for appointment to the Developmental Disabilities Resources Board. The appointment of Ms. Pamela Walker, who resides in the 5th Ward and whose term will expire October 1st, 2020. I respectfully request your approval of the appointment.
Alderman from the 12th Ward, you recognize on the mayor's appointment to the Developmental Disabilities Resource Board.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I ask for the approval of Pamela Walker for the Disabilities Board.
But moved by the Alderman from the 12th, seconded by the Alderman from the 25th. Alderman from the 1st, you recognize.
Mr. President, members of the board, I rise to oppose this nomination, and the reason I do so is because I have been working on the nomination since we did the Board of Adjustment. I don't have a problem with the small ward nominations, but this is a major nomination that goes across the city, and I actually am doing my research, and you will be getting in your boxes today along with the email. There is an ordinance 55771 that Alderman Vaccaro and I have been working on, and the ordinance says that the mayor has to appoint boards and commissions across the city so that it is representative of what the city looks like, not so that, and it specifically then goes on to the codes to talk about that the wards have to be representative. I have been keeping the nomination since I came back here. Let me tell you, there is in no way representative of across the city. I would ask that this nomination be sent to the Health Committee so that you can have time to look at the rules change actually I'm doing, which is going to ask for most of the nominations to be sent to the correct committee so that we can vet, so that we can find out if they meet these requirements of all the boards and commissions. The mayor actually appoints about 55 to 60 people. 55 to 60 commissions and boards. And in just, I just grabbed a handful of the ones that I have been saving. There are people that are, my community is not represented on any of them. Most of North St. Louis is not represented on any of them. I appreciate you bringing this as the chair of health, but since it's from the 5th Ward, I sure would like to have the 5th Ward's input, and normally that's what people used to do, and she may be supporting it, but I really do want to see us do something holistically about these nominations, okay? So that we're not just bringing them onto this floor. People do not have a chance to find out if they meet all the requirements. The old nominations that I pulled from when I was here before would list who was on the committee, you know, what ward they were from, what their term was, who they were replacing. We're not vetting at all. So advise and consent is very hard to do. Advise and consent when you just get up here and somebody nominates them, and there is no way in the world I could vote yes or no on this with just you nominating them. Not that I don't, you know, respect your opinion and things like that, but not giving me any chance at all to find out if this is the person who should or should not be on a committee. And this is a citywide, not related to just a ward. And for that reason, I'm going to oppose her, and I'm going to ask for a roll call vote. And I really would move to send it to committee where it can be properly vetted. We have to stop doing this, having the mayor send somebody over here, and then we just get up and say, I'm doing the nomination. That is not advised and consented, and it is also most likely a violation of the law, which I have right here, the ordinance 55771, and the codes.
All right, thank you. Alderman from the 5th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I am not in opposition to this nomination, and I have no problem with us passing it here today. However, I am open to seeing the draft that the Alderwoman for the 1st has put before us and possibly revisiting those rules in the committee, but I stand in support of the nomination that was sent by the mayor's office. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Alderman from the 12th, would you like to withdraw your motion and send it to committee? Or
Mr. President, I don't have no problem withdrawing my motion and sending it to the Health Committee.
Alderman from the 25th. Alderman from the 25th. We need you to withdraw your second. All right. And would you like now to make a motion to send it to the Health?
Thank you, Mr. President. I will now make a motion to send the appointment to the Health Committee.
It's been moved by Alderman from the 12th, seconded by Alderman from the 25th, that we refer the mayor's appointments to the Developmental Disability Resource Board, to the Health Committee. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Clerk, please make note of that.
So noted.
Do we have anything further?
No, that is the extent of the report of city officials, Mr.
We'll
President.
dispense with line items 7 through 10, first reading of board bills.
Board Bill number 62, sponsored by Alderwoman Navarro, an ordinance repealing Ordinance 70026 and in lieu thereof enacting a new ordinance prohibiting the issuance of any 3 a.m. closing permits for any currently non-3 a.m. licensed premises within the boundaries of the 28th Ward Liquor Control District as established herein, for a period of 3 years from the effective date hereof, containing exceptions and allowing during the moratorium period for the renewal or transfer of existing licenses under certain circumstances, and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill number 63, sponsored by Alderman Bosley, an ordinance directing the Director of Streets to make such changes in the present traffic pattern controlling traffic on Greer, Dodier, and University in the 3500 block of said streets between North Grand and North Garrison, so that as reconfigured, the traffic pattern developed and in place as a result of the changes directed by this ordinance are as followed. Namely, Greer, the 3500 block, traffic to flow 2 ways between North Grand and North Garrison. Dodier, 3500 block, traffic to flow 2-way between North Grand and North Garrison. University, 3500 block, traffic to flow 1-way southeast between North Grand and North Garrison. Board Bill number 64, sponsored by Alderman Williamson and President Reed, an ordinance pertaining to the transit sales tax imposed pursuant to Section 94.660 of the Missouri Revised Statutes as adopted and approved by the voters on August 2, 1994, pursuant to Ordinance 63168, creating the City Public Transit Sales Tax Trust Fund, directing the Treasurer to deposit funds received pursuant to said sales tax into the City Public Transit Sales Tax Trust Fund, Account 1, appropriating $11,560,000 from the said sales tax for the period herein stated to the Bi-State Development Agency for certain purposes, providing for the payment of such funds during the period July 1, 2018 through June 30, 2019, further providing that in no event shall the Comptroller draw warrants on the Treasurer for an amount greater than the amounts of the proceeds deposited in the City Public Transit Sales Tax Trust Fund during the period of July 1, 2018 through June 30, 2019, and containing a severability clause. Board Bill number 65, sponsored by Alderman Williamson and President Reed, an ordinance pertaining to the transit sales tax imposed pursuant to Section 94.660 Missouri Revised Statute as adopted and approved by the voters November 4, 1997, pursuant to Ordinance 64111, creating the City Public Transit Sales Tax Trust Fund, directing the Treasurer to deposit funds received pursuant to said sales tax into the City Public Transit Sales Tax Trust Fund, Account 2, appropriating $11,560,000 from the said sales tax for the period herein stated to the Bi-State Development Agency for certain purposes, providing for the payment of such funds during the period July 1, 2018 through June 30, 2019, further providing that in no event shall the Comptroller draw warrants on the Treasurer for an amount greater than the amounts of the proceeds deposited in the City Public Transit Sales Tax Trust Fund during the period of July 1, 2018 through June 30, 2019, and containing a severability clause. Board Bill number 66, sponsored by Alderman Williamson and President Reed, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $21,877,000 as described and defined in Section 94.600 through 94.655 Missouri Revised Statutes as amended for the period herein stated, which sum is hereby appropriated out of the Transportation Trust Fund to the Bi-State Development Agency for transportation purposes, and further providing that the appropriation is conditional upon the Bi-State Development Agency supplying the Board of Estimate and Apportionment an annual evaluation report, further providing that in no event shall the Comptroller draw warrants on the Treasurer for an amount greater than the amount of proceeds deposited in the Transportation Trust Fund during the period from July 1, 2018 through June 30, 2019, providing for the appropriation to be reduced if certain funds are used for other than public transit purposes, further providing that the appropriation is conditional upon Bi-State requiring the payment of prevailing wages and benefits to employees outside service contractors and containing a severability clause. That is the extent of first reading, Mr. President.
Reference to committee.
Public Safety, Board Bill number 62. Streets, Traffic, and Refuse, Board Bill number 63. Ways and Means, Board Bills 64, 65, and 66. That is the extent of reference to committee, Mr. Chairman.
Second reading.
Board Bill number 27, sponsored by Alderman Moore, an ordinance repealing Ordinance 70087, and in lieu thereof enacting a new ordinance prohibiting the issuance of any package or drink liquor licenses for any currently non-licensed premises within the boundaries of the 4th Ward Liquor Control District and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 37AA, sponsored by Alderman Kennedy, an ordinance pertaining to the authorization of a mutual aid agreement between the City and St. Clair County, Illinois, for St. Clair County, Illinois Illinois law enforcement officers, employees to provide law enforcement services and activities on Metrolink property within the city limits, containing definitions, a severability clause, and an emergency clause. Board Bill Number 2, sponsored by Alderwoman Martin, an ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission on February 7, 2018 to change the zoning of property in City Block 3084 from J Industrial District and K Unrestricted District to the K Unrestricted District only at 7518 South Broadway and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill Number 3, sponsored by Alderman Vollmer, an ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission to change the zoning of property in City Block 4741 from A Single Family Dwelling District and F Neighborhood Commercial District to the A Single Family Dwelling District only at 5201 Filer and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill Number 10, sponsored by Alderman Coder and Alderwoman Ingracia, an ordinance pertaining to the zoning code requiring that certain uses that are regulated by a plat and petition process under the license code and building code be made a conditional use, prohibited use, or use by right under the zoning code. Board Bill Number 41, sponsored by Alderman Williamson, an ordinance to provide for the borrowing of funds in anticipation of the collection of tax payments levied by the city for deposit in its general revenue fund for the calendar year ending December 31st, 2018 and remaining uncollected, and other revenues remaining to be collected and deposited in the general revenue fund for fiscal year ending June 30, 2019. All such revenues for the general revenue fund in the treasury of the city through the issuance of the city of its tax and revenue anticipation notes and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill Number 35, AA, sponsored by Alderwoman Spencer, Alderman Ogilvy, Alderwoman Navarro, Alderwoman Green, Alderwoman Martin, Alderwoman Ingracia, Alderwoman Rice, and Alderwoman Howard. An ordinance pertaining to campaign contribution limits, amending Ordinance 70357, Sections 1 and 3, and repealing Section 4 of said ordinance to acknowledge newly passed State of Missouri maximum limits on campaign contributions and to decrease maximum limits on campaign contributions for local elections as provided therein. Board Bill Number 45, sponsored by Alderwoman Davis, an ordinance recommended and approved by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, authorizing and directing the Director of Airports and the Comptroller of the City, owner and operator of St. Louis Lambert International Airport, to enter into and execute the Airport Terminal Services, Inc. Space Permit AL-071 between the City and Airport Terminal Services, granting to the permittees certain rights and privileges in connection with the occupancy and use of the premises, containing a severability clause and containing an emergency clause. That is the extent of second reading, Mr. President.
We will dispense with line item 14, perfection consent.
Board Bill Number 46, sponsored by Alderwoman Green, an ordinance renewing the Tower Grove South Concerned Citizens Special Business District and containing severability, effectiveness, and emergency clauses. Board Bill Number 42, sponsored by Alderwoman Davis, an ordinance recommended and approved by the Airport Commission, the Comptroller, and the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, making certain findings with respect to the transfer of up to $4 million of excess monies that the City intends to transfer from the Debt Service Stabilization Fund to the Airport Development Fund for the purpose of making funds available to address Coldwater Creek emergency repairs, stabilize banks and channels, containing a severability clause and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill Number 43, sponsored by Alderwoman Davis, an ordinance recommended and approved by the Airport Commission, the Board of Public Service, and the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, authorizing a First Amendment to Section 1 of the Airfield Building and Environs Projects Ordinance 70617, which authorized a multi-year public work and improvement program at St. Louis International Airport, increasing the total estimated cost of the airport building and environs project by $4 million to $19 million, adding a new project to the list entitled Coldwater Creek Emergency Repairs, Stabilized Banks and Channels, authorizing a first supplemental appropriation in the total amount of $4 million from the Airport Development Fund into the Airport Buildings and Environs Projects Fund, containing a severability clause and an emergency clause. Board Bill number 44, sponsored by Alderwoman Davis. An ordinance recommended and approved by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment authorizing and directing the Director of Airports and the Comptroller to enter into and execute the Second Amendment to Lease Agreement AL-222 between the City and MHS Travel and Charter, containing a severability clause and an emergency clause. That is the extent of the perfection consent calendar, Mr. President.
Alderman from the 18th, you recognize on the motion for the perfection consent calendar.
Mr. President, members of the board, I move for adoption of the perfection consent calendar.
Moved by the Alderman from the 18th, seconded by the Alderman from the 10th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Board bills for perfection.
We have none, Mr. President.
Third reading consent.
Board Bill number 4, sponsored by Alderman Coder. An ordinance recommended by the Board of Public Service to conditionally vacate travel in a 10-foot wide L-shaped alley in City Block 798 is bounded by Shenandoah, 10th Street, Lamai, and Menard in the city. Board Bill number 30, sponsored by Alderman Muhammad. An ordinance directing the Director of Streets to temporarily close, barricade, or otherwise impede the flow of traffic on Anderson at the north curb line of Dryden and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill number 31, sponsored by Alderman Vaccaro. An ordinance establishing a four-way stop site at the intersection of Mardell and Sulphur, regulating all traffic traveling eastbound and westbound on Mardell at Sulphur, and regulating all traffic traveling northbound and southbound on Sulphur at Mardell and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill number 7, sponsored by Alderwoman Davis, an ordinance recommended and approved by the Airport Commission, the Board of Public Service, and the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, establishing and authorizing a public works and improvement program at St. Louis Lambert International Airport at total estimated cost of $15 million, authorizing an initial appropriation in the amount of $5,382,543 from the Airport Development Fund and containing a severability and emergency clause. Board Bill number 8, sponsored by Alderwoman Davis, an ordinance recommended and approved by the Airport Commission and the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, authorizing a first supplemental appropriation in the total amount of $481,302 from the Airport Development Fund into the Airfield Building and Environs and containing an emergency clause. That is the extent of third reading consent calendar, Mr. President.
Alderman from the 18th, you recognize on the motion for the third reading consent calendar.
Mr. President, members of the board, I move for adoption of the third reading consent calendar.
Moved by the Alderman from the 18th, seconded by the Alderman from the 10th. Any discussion? Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Middlebrook. Alderman Bosley. Alderman Moore. Alderwoman Hubbard. Alderwoman Ingracia. Alderman Coder. Alderwoman Rice. Alderman Gunther. Alderman Vollmer. Alderwoman Martin. Alderman Arnowitz. Alderwoman Murphy. Alderwoman Howard. Alderwoman Green. Alderman Oldenburg. Alderman Rhodey. Alderman Kennedy. Alderwoman Davis. Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Muhammad. Alderman Boyd. Alderman Vaccaro. Alderman Ogilvie. Alderman Cohn. Alderman Williamson. Alderwoman Boyd. Alderwoman Navarro. President Reed.
Aye.
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Middlebrook. Alderman Moore. Alderman Coder. Alderman Gunther. Alderman Arnowitz. Alderwoman Murphy. Alderwoman Green. Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Boyd. Alderman Ogilvy. Alderman Cone. Aye. Mr. President, you have 24 aye votes and 0 no votes.
By your vote, you sustain the motion on the Alderman from the 18th and 3rd read and finally pass the aforementioned bills. Third reading, report of engrossments.
Board Bill number 21AA, sponsored by Alderwoman Howard, an ordinance submitting to the qualified voters of the city a proposal to revise Section 2 of Article 8 of the City Charter, which requires city employees to reside within the boundaries of the city and thus allows said employees, except for city agency and department directors appointed by the mayor, to reside outside of the boundaries of the city, and providing for an election to be held for voting on the proposed revision and the manner of voting thereat, and for the publication, certification, deposit, and recording of this ordinance and containing an emergency clause.
Alderman from the 14th, you recognize on the third reading and final passage of Board Bill number 21 as amended.
Mr. President, I'd like to remove this and move it to third reading and formal calendar, Board Bill 21 as amended.
All right, thank you. Mr. Clerk, please make note of that. Place Board Bill 21 as amended on the third reading and formal calendar.
So noted.
I think Board Bill 20...
Board Bill 25 as amended, sponsored by Alderman Muhammad, Kennedy, Moore, and Bosley. An ordinance submitting to the qualified voters of the city a proposed amendment to the charter to maintain the Board of Aldermen as a body of 28 aldermen representing 28 wards and preventing its reduction beginning December 31st, 2021 to a body of 14 aldermen representing 14 wards as called for under Article 1, Section 3 of the City Charter, providing for an election to be held for voting on the proposed amendment and the manner for the voting, and for the publication, certification, deposit, and recording of this ordinance and containing an emergency clause.
Alderman from the 21st, you recognize on the third reading and final passage of Board Bill 25 as amended.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to move Board Bill 25 to the third reading consent calendar.
To the informal calendar?
Informal calendar.
Mr. Clerk, please make note of that. Place Board Bill 25 as amended on the third reading informal calendar.
So noted.
Report of enrollment.
Board Bill number 4, Board Bill number 30, Board Bill number 31, Board Bill number 7, Board Bill number 8. That is the extent of the report of enrollment, Mr. President.
All other business being suspended, President shall in open session affix his signature hereto to the end that these may become law. First reading of resolutions.
Resolution number 19, sponsored by Alderwomen Spencer and Ingracia. The Board of Aldermen requests law enforcement investigations concerning the North Side Regeneration Development. That is the extent of first reading of resolutions, Mr. President.
Alderwoman from the 20th, you recognize on first reading of resolution 19.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. Resolution 19 is a simple resolution calling for state and federal investigation into the dealings of Northside Regeneration and Mr. Paul McKee. On your desks, we have a couple of very recent news articles that have shed some light on some very alarming details pertaining to the real estate handling of properties in the Northside Regeneration footprint. It was brought to our attention through a lawsuit that lawyers for the city of St. Louis have called some of the real estate dealings a sham, specifically designed to inflate property values to increase the tax credits available by the state of Missouri. These allegations are incredibly serious in nature and warrant something larger than simply an internal investigation. While I can appreciate the mayor calling for an internal investigation, we need outside counsel on this, and I think it's important that we do our due diligence in calling for the state and federal prosecutors to really look into what has been going on here, and that is what this resolution is doing.
All right. Would you like to make a motion to send it to committee, or what do you plan to do with it?
I'd like to make a motion that we pass Resolution 19 here today.
Would you like to request unanimous consent?
I would.
Well, if there's any objection to unanimous consent, then you would send it to. So the first thing you would do is just request unanimous consent. If anybody says object, then okay.
Sounds like we have some objections. Mr. President, I would like to move to put it in committee.
Okay, would you like to send it to the Public Safety Committee?
I think that would be an appropriate place to put it.
All right, so make the motion to, okay, hold on a second. If you'd like to make a motion to assign resolution number 19 to public safety, please make that motion.
Mr. President, I move that we assign resolution 19 to the Public Safety Committee.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 20th, second by the Alderwoman from the 6th. The Alderwoman from the 5th, I think, was up first. Alderwoman from the 5th.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. I rise in opposition to this resolution simply for the fact that, I don't believe it's our role to start criminal investigations, and I don't believe we should act, upon a case that's kind of being tried in the media. Let the courts determine what will happen with it. And don't just start there. With my ward, if we're going to do investigations, launch criminal investigations on developments, let's do it citywide. Let's look at all the tips. Let's look at all the tax credits. Let's just do what we need to do, but let's just not cherry pick on what we have an issue with. And okay. Since I've been down here, I've never known us to do a resolution to launch a criminal investigation. They know their jobs. If there's something to be found, trust me, they will find it, and they don't need us to direct them.
All right, thank you. And again, the discussions are the assignment of this resolution to committee. Alderman from the 19th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. As I read these articles from the Post-Dispatch, I find no reason for us to do this. It is well on its way. It has everyone's attention. All authorities that have legal standing are on top of this, including our city councilors. What are we going to do? That's my whole thing. And if it's going to a committee, it should go to HUD. That's where it should go. Right. So I'm going to be in opposition to, first of all, I'm going to be in opposition to it going to that committee. Okay. It needs to go to HUD. And then secondly, I'm in opposition of the resolution because we are messy. We are so messy down here right now, and we are the laughing stock of this community right now, because we need to do our work here. I don't have any legal standing to do anything to anybody. I don't care if I came in with 12 stacks high of information that may be erroneous or should have had some attention or whatever. It's nothing that you can do about it. But what is going on now, what I read here, all those people have legal standing to do what needs to be done. And they're investigating pretty thoroughly as I read it. So We have so many other issues down here that we need to be dealing with. Let's stay in our lane and do that, because we've dealt with this already, and the appropriate officers are dealing with it. And so I'm just in objection. I'm just tired of messing.
All right. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Alderwoman.
Members of the board, I also agree with the Alderman from the 19th regarding where it should go. I do not believe that public safety is the correct thing.
We send it there.
HUDs and or public utilities or something else would be much, Ways and Means would be much more the correct a committee to send it to, but it is not a public safety. It is a either monetary. I kind of disagree a little bit with some of what was said in that we do have the right. That's why we have subpoena power, because we can look into things. I do believe that we should be careful of looking into it when it's a criminal investigation going on. So I would think that we would slow your roll a little bit and see, you know, where it goes. But I'm just in objection to it being sent to public safety, because I don't believe that's the correct committee to be sent to.
All right. Alderwoman, would you like to amend your motion and send it to HUDs? It could go to HUDs or any of those other. But
Mr. President, my suggestion to have it sent to public safety was out of deference to your suggestion, and I would like to amend my recommendation here and request that Resolution 19 be sent to HUDs, out of respect for the Alderman from the 19th.
All right. All right.
Okay. With that, I would like to add, I do agree with the Alderwoman from the 19th that we are a laughing stock down here. We have allowed these shenanigans to continue for far too long. And it is alarming to me that city employees employed by LCRA through a lawsuit have mentioned as a sidebar that there are shenanigans and sham dealings happening here.
Again, we want to, the comments has directed on where we're sending it, because all of that discussion will take place in committee. And I know there are a lot of people out here that would like to stand up and speak on the resolution today, but we're talking about the assignment right now.
I was speaking to it, and that is why I believe that sending it to the HUDs committee would be appropriate, because of these real estate dealings that we have seen now in several articles published by the Post-Dispatch and other reputable media outlets. This is not something that we should see tried in the media. We should see it tried in a court of law.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Alderman from the 17th.
Mr. President, as chairman of HUDs, I'm sorry, I'm fumbling here. I can't seem to quite find the resolution to read it, and I'm not sure exactly. The heading says that they're calling for an investigation, or by, I'm just trying to understand, is the request that the HUDs committee conduct an investigation, or is this requesting criminal authorities to conduct the investigation? Which are, I think, quite different requests, and I'm sorry, I just...
Would you like the Alderwoman from the 20th to yield the question?
Perhaps, yes. Alderwoman, dealing with a request to call for somebody else to do an investigation in my mind.
Alderman, hold on a second. Alderwoman from the 20th, will you yield the question to the Alderman from the 17th?
Thank you, Mr. President. I will yield for questions.
Alderman from the 17th, please proceed.
I guess the issue is and I'm sorry, I just, the Alderwoman from the 1st just handed this to me, so is your intent for us, the Board of Aldermen, to conduct an investigation, or pass a resolution calling for a third party to conduct the investigation?
That is exactly right, the latter. We are not calling on this board to conduct an investigation. I do not think an internal city investigation is a adequate investigation to what's been going on here. And we are, through this resolution, calling for a third-party, thorough investigation outside of the city of St. Louis.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure I understood what was being referred to our committee. I think we can deal with that resolution. I would not feel comfortable at this time trying to conduct an investigation. So, good. Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? It's been moved by the Alderman from the 20th and seconded by the Alderman from the 6th that we assign Resolution number 19 to HUDs. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Second reading.
Resolution number 12AA, sponsored by Alderwoman Navarro, Alderwoman Spencer, and Alderman Ogilvy, exploring the effect of ward reduction and develop recommendations for an equitable and efficient transition from 28 to 14 wards through the establishment of an advisory committee.
Alderman from the 28th, you recognized on the first reading and second reading of resolution number 12 as amended.
Thank you, Mr. President. Fellow members of the board, I move that we pass resolution number 12 as amended.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 28th, entertained, seconded by the Alderman from the 25th. Any discussion? Alderman from the first.
Rise in opposition, and also we'll request a roll call. And so I had much conversation with many people this past weekend regarding the reduction of members of the Board of Aldermen. And what I finally got through to most people is something called in law the fruit of the poison tree. And in law, many times things are thrown out, confessions and everything else, because everything that was gotten was through illegal means. As we talk about these, when I heard people speak to about 14 versus 28 wards, I always tell them the first thing we need to look at is the makeup of this current board and how it's been since 2003 and how we continue to lose black representation while gaining in black city population. So for me, this is that second election we had was the fruit of the poison tree, because we had an election in 2004. The people clearly said they didn't want to. You bring and you remove black aldermen, you really kind of threaten them with, if you stand up and say no to things, that look what we can do, we can remove your ward. And so all of this is the fruit of the poison tree. I'm not interested in it. I actually probably know more about it than anybody, because I've been studying it for 10 years. I have every redistricting. It is just not anything that's in the best interest of my community, and I'm not interested in even having the conversation about it, and I will be voting no.
Alderman from the 19th.
Mr. President, members of the board, my opposition to this resolution is very simple. It doesn't talk about redistricting. And everything that is in this resolution and all the things that they're prepared to investigate and look at are things that are already being done through the Ways and Means Committee and or the legislative committee that will work on redistricting once the original data is sent to us, which is approved by the federal government, passed through the Secretary of State for the state of Missouri, with appropriate guidelines for us to follow in redistricting. I don't think anybody asked you, me, or anybody else any questions about the redistricting process. It is very clear on how it is done, the things that you look at, and the items that are listed in this resolution to look at is what we do every day anyway. And so there's nothing that a committee could look at and bring back that would be helpful in any kind of way, because it's already being done. Now, knowing the redistricting process and knowing it very thoroughly from the state and local level, this is not anything you can play with. That's the first thing. Now, if you need something else to do, I would suggest that you educate your community and make sure that they understand that they need to fill out their census forms when they come, so that we can have the appropriate counts, so that we don't lose government funds coming to our state and our city. Our process that we used in the last redistricting on this local level was the fairest I had ever heard of in this body, because the president chose to allow all of us to have input on drawing our lines. He also gave us, he went outside and bought additional data for us to look at pertaining to our areas, so that we can understand better about our economics, that even above what the federal government sent us as well. And so we knew what we were doing and understood that. And then we partnered in the process. So everyone that was bound by you was sitting at the table together, and we all had opportunities to work together on drawing those lines. And so all this jargon in this resolution has nothing to do with improving redistricting at all. It just doesn't. Now, if we want to look at that process, I could suggest that we bring in the appropriate people to educate you on what that looks like and what it pertains to from the Secretary of State's office and from the Board of Election Commissioners, because they also play a part in the data that is received and gathered and stored there as well. Now, when you go to the state level and looking at redistricting, it's even more thorough. And I served on that state level at the last time for redistricting. So I know and I understand the process. And so I think there's a lot that is not known and that you probably need to go back and be a little bit more thorough on what your attempt is, because this is not going to get you anything. We're already doing these things. And the information that comes to us is the information you must use by law. You don't get to make up anything. It doesn't happen that way. So I'm just not going to support this resolution. Thank you.
All right. Alderman from the 23rd.
Yes, Mr. President. I actually am in favor of this for one reason. We discussed this in committee. We made changes where that committee will actually come back and report their findings to the legislative committee before it comes back out to the full board. I really think that it will help in the long run. And I do agree that there's a lot more that should be done, and maybe another resolution doing a little bit more would be nice. But I think that we have to start somewhere. I believe we should pass this out, get the process started, get representatives from throughout the city to kind of come back. I think in the long run, if it goes back on the ballot to revote this, I think it will help make a more intelligent decision. I also agree that a second resolution should come along to show more what that would look like. But we worked on this. The sponsor was gracious to make multiple changes that the committee members felt would make it a better resolution. So I would encourage that we just move this along and actually go along again with another resolution, because I have the same questions, and I think the more information we can put out in the community, the better off we are, where people can make an intelligent decision, where the last time it was thrown out, there was nothing put out. It was just thrown out there. Nobody responded to the negative stuff. So anyway, I would say that in this particular case, we made a lot of changes that we felt would make it a little bit better. And I'd like to see more, but I believe this is a good start.
All right. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Alderwoman from the 28th, you're recognized to close.
Thank you, Mr. President. This resolution did pass out of committee unanimously, so I was a little surprised to hear some of the debate on the floor today, but I do want to take that into consideration. This is a resolution. It is not about redistricting. That is a much larger conversation that needs a lot more input. I completely agree. And this is also not about whether we should reduce the wards. This is about if we move forward with that, we have a lot of due diligence on our own part to do, and that this is about getting the ball rolling on having those conversations. So if we reduce the wards, we should have an advisory committee that helps us, not about the redistricting, that needs to happen as well, but just in terms of what other sorts of decisions, what other sorts of logistics do we as a Board of Aldermen need to consider in order to do that well, and how do we address the concerns that are being raised now about ward reduction. So if we do move forward, we need to be able to listen to all those concerns from the people who oppose it and make sure that we incorporate those into our deliberations about how logistically we operate as a Board of Aldermen as 14 as opposed to 28. But I would like to be able to have those conversations and clear up any other questions that people have about this. So I moved to put this on the informal calendar.
Excuse me, you said you'd like to put it on the informal calendar?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I take that. I move to approve Resolution 12 as amended.
I think it's been moved by the Alderman from 28th, seconded by the Alderman from the 25th, that we adopt Resolution number 12 as amended. And now you understand that the adoption of resolutions require 15 votes. And there's been a request for roll call. There's been a request for roll call. Did you say something about putting it on the informal calendar? Oh, yeah.
I move that we adopt Resolution number 12 as amended.
Okay, it's been moved by the Alderman from the 28th, seconded by the Alderman from the 25th, that we adopt Resolution number 12 as amended. There's been a request for roll call. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Middlebrook. Alderman Bosley. Alderman Moore. Alderwoman Hubbard. Alderwoman Ingracia. Alderman Coder. Alderwoman Rice. Alderman Gunther. Alderman Volmer. Alderwoman Martin. Alderman Arnowitz. Alderwoman Murphy. Alderwoman Howard. Alderwoman Green. Alderman Oldenburg. Alderman Rhodey. Alderman Kennedy. Alderwoman Davis. Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Muhammad. Alderman Boyd. Alderman Vaccaro. Alderman Ogilvie. Alderman Cone. Alderman Williamson. Alderwoman Boyd. Alderwoman Navarro. President Reed.
Aye.
Alderwoman Middlebrook. Alderman Moore. Alderman Coder. Alderman Arnowitz. Alderwoman Murphy. Alderwoman Howard. Alderwoman Davis. Alderman Muhammad. Alderman Boyd. Mr. President, you have 20 aye votes, 2 no votes, and 1 present.
By your vote, you sustain the motion, Alderman from the 28th, and adopted Resolution number 12 as amended. Miscellaneous unfinished business.
We have none.
Announcements. We actually have one piece of miscellaneous unfinished business. There is a courtesy resolution that's been laid over. Alderman from the 3rd.
President. Thank you, Mr. President. This resolution is for the Innovative Concept Academy. If you all aren't familiar with that academy, it's the academy at 20th and Cass. It's Blewett. It's inside of Blewett. We just had some resolutions given out today where we had some people who had been working on being rehabilitated and becoming productive members of society. A lot of times when people do things, we tend to shun them and we don't allow them to become productive members of society, and we don't give them the proper support that's needed and the type of support systems that's needed to become productive members. And Judge Jimmy Edwards and the teachers and employees that have worked at this school have done an amazing job in keeping it something that's being talked about around the city. It's a hopeful place. People can go there and hope to be somebody that they can be proud of in the future. They can not be judged by their past being inside of that academy, and they'll be graduating soon. I want to call up Ms. Bernice Jones-King, former Alderwoman. And Alderwoman Marlene Davis. So once again, it's important that we recognize the people in our city who is doing the work. A lot of the stigma that we get around our city, I think it comes from the youth and a lot of the issues that exist. So having a place where we can have people come where there is hope in getting yourself to a point in life where you can be happy about where you stand as a man and as an individual or as a person in general. You know, seeing yourself as a productive member of society, I think is extremely important. And having facilities and people who care about you where that can happen is important. I want to have Lou Galley read the resolution, please, if you will, sir.
Whereas the commencement ceremony for Innovative Concept Academy at Blewett will be held May 31st, 2018 at St. Stanislaus Polish Heritage Center at 1413 North 20th Street from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. And whereas Judge Jimmy Edwards is the founder of Innovative Concept Academy and Dr. Michael A. Shaw is the school program director and principal. Whereas ICA is made up of 3 components: the St. Louis Public Schools, the 22nd Judicial Juvenile Courts, and MERS Goodwill. And whereas MERS Goodwill, an adult education and literacy and Missouri Option Job Readiness Training program, is graduating its largest number of graduates ever. And whereas this graduation event will be a tri-leveled graduation, St. Louis Public Schools, adult education, and Missouri Option. This type of educational promotion is not being done with any other educational program in any single facility. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Aldermen of the City of St. Louis that we pause in our deliberations to celebrate the accomplishments of Innovative Concept Academy and to congratulate the graduates of the respective programs who will be honored May 31st. And we further direct the clerk of this board to spread a copy of this resolution across the minutes of these proceedings and to prepare a commemorative copy to the end that it may be presented to our honorees at a time and place deemed appropriate by the sponsor.
Ms. King is the after-school and evening coordinator. So as you all know, a lot of times when our kids get out of school, they want to do after-school activities, and those people who stay there with them are like mother figures and father figures because they help grow them up outside of what they're learning inside of the classroom. So Ms. Bernice Jones-King, we really appreciate you taking the time and being who you are to be able to give our kids the special love and care that they need during these times that we have in this city. Thank you very much. I'd like to bring you up to say something.
Good morning, everyone. I want to say thank you so much for having an opportunity to be here to speak on Innovative Concept Academy at Blewett. The importance of the school is that we have given those young individuals an opportunity to have a second chance. They've been written off by the traditional school system, but at Innovative Concept Academy, with the rings that are supporting at MERS Goodwill, 22nd Judicial Juvenile Court, and the St. Louis Public Schools, these young individuals are now graduating. Their diploma will read from the high school in which they came from. This is an opportunity for them to now say they have accomplished and completed their high school requirements. They will have an opportunity to go out here and register in our community colleges and to go to trade schools and do the things that they like to do. So I would like to say thank you so much for supporting this resolution and giving the support that's needed for Innovative Concept Academy, because these kids come from all over this city. All over this city. They're not just kids that are just centrally located in one part of the city. They're coming from all over the city. So continue to support Innovative Concept Academy, and I thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you.
Alderman from the 26th.
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to make that resolution in bank.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 26th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 14th, that we make this resolution in bank. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Clerk, please create another copy of the resolution in bank. Alderwoman from the 6th.
Then just wanted to say congratulations and thank you for the work you do. For many years, I volunteered as a guardian ad litem for children who were in the state's custody because of abuse or neglect, and I had several of the kids I represented graduate from Innovative Concepts Academy at a time when nobody else would take them in, and so I definitely understand the value and really appreciate the fact that it's an option for kids in the city.
All right. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Alderman from the 20th? No, it passed. All right. I also just want to thank all the administrators and the parents and the kids, everybody that's involved in the success of the academy. We know that these kids, when they go through the Innovative Concept Academy, they learn not just their, book skills, but they take with them other life skills that begin to change not their lives, but just, also the people around them. So congratulations and thanks for a job well done.
Well, yeah, I was president of the school board, but what I like to do is just congratulate. First, I'm going to say thank you to Judge Jimmy Edwards, because this was his concept. He dreamed about this. He supported it. He traveled all over the country and outside of the country to get support for this school. He brought a new model that works. We like it. The partnership with the St. Louis Public Schools is important because you need something different for some children. And to take them off the path to juvenile incarceration and bring them to reality to have a dream and move forward with a good life. We've had some that have they're attending all of our colleges now. They're going into the military. Some of them are trying to be entrepreneurs now. It's just really wonderful. And so I've been there from day one. I love the school. If you have a time to devote to maybe tutoring someone or helping Bernice with one of her events, she's a great event planner too, so she keeps us busy. But help with one of the events, it would just be great. These young people really are grateful for that school, and I just appreciate you and say thank you.
Announcements.
Monday, May 21st, Ways and Means will meet in the Leisure Room at 9 a.m. Tuesday, May 22nd, Ways and Means will meet in the Leisure Room at 9 a.m. Streets, Traffic, and Refuse will meet in the Kennedy Room at 9 a.m. Wednesday, May 23rd, Ways and Means will meet in the Leisure Room at 9 a.m. Thursday, May 24th, there will be a full board meeting at 10 a.m. in the board chambers. Friday, May 25th, there are no meetings scheduled. That is the extent of announcements, Mr. President.
Alderman from the 24th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just wanted to take a moment to congratulate my friend Maureen Hanlon. Last night, she graduated from St. Louis University Law School as valedictorian. I hear she gave a great speech, although sadly I was not able to attend last night. Hopefully somebody recorded it so I can watch it. Our mutual friend called Maureen more machine than woman the last 3 years as she was in law school. In addition to ending up valedictorian, she spent a lot of time volunteering at MSI, providing free advice to people there. And something I know she believes. You have to believe the ground will materialize under your feet the moment you step forward. No one can tell you whether it will. Maureen, the ground materialized, of course. So, Maureen Hanlon, Esquire, congratulations.
Oh, congratulations. Alderwoman from the 14th.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to announce that the Bevo Bizarro will be open for business at 5000 Gravois at the intersection of Marginford, right across from Das Bevo. They will have handmade items. They will have rummage and food and drink. So come on by. Starts at 9 a.m. Also, more importantly, I would like to congratulate Firefighters Local 73 on them reaching their 100th anniversary. They are very supportive of our firefighters. They've been backing the firefighters, and our firefighters are members of that local. And they're celebrating Sunday at 4271 Delore, 1 o'clock. If you want to stop by and congratulate them, please do. That also is near Das Bevo at the intersection of Delore and Gravois.
Alderman from the 17th.
Yes, Mr. President, I just want to bring everybody's attention. Perhaps we could have a moment of silence. We here in St. Louis, who experience the epidemic of gun violence almost on a weekly basis, I think as experienced as we are with that and as tragic as it is, the circumstances surrounding shooting victims in grade schools have to be perhaps the greatest tragedy of this tragic situation. And while we've been in session here, at least according to my feed here, it looks like they've had a mass shooting in a grade school in Houston. I just thought that, you know, while we're here, we might take a moment.
Absolutely. I'd ask everybody in the chambers and galleries who's able to stand to please rise for a moment of silence for the mass shooting in the school in Houston. Thank you. Alderwoman from the 19th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I have a few things that I wanted to acknowledge. One is I wanted to thank our chair of the Ways and Means Committee because he's being very thorough in his calendar for looking at the budget, and most especially the fact that we're going to have 3 public forums, and all the questions that have been listed to ask the public, that's what he plans to do. And so I thank him for that. Watch for the calendar, make sure that all of us attend at least one. That would be good, so you can hear directly from the public. I'd also like to thank the Urban League. They're having their health fair tomorrow at the O'Fallon YMCA, and that'll be from 10 to 2. They'll have every kind of test that you could think of that you would need taken. The mammogram van, everything is going to be there. And so it's a way for them to reach out and make sure that those who may not have the appropriate health care can get those kinds of tests taken care of. Next, I wanted to congratulate our airport. We had our first international flight last night. Wow. And it was a wow, too. I did attend that ceremony. So what's so ironic is that we probably had people from at least, I think they said, about 15 different countries that were on that plane. I mean, folks from everywhere. And some of our own St. Louis residents coming back in. A friend of mine said, I was on that flight. I said, well, I was waving at you when you got off, you know. So this is good. And their inaugural rates, if you've never been to Iceland or if you've never been to India, Iceland inaugural rate is $100 and India is $199. So if you only go for one day, if you don't have money for a hotel, you need to fly in there, walk around for about 20 hours and come on back home. So I suggest that we all take advantage of it, okay? And then lastly, I don't know how many of our veterans we still have here, but this is Veterans Appreciation Week. And I know that because I have more veteran services located in my ward, and they've had events going on and all kinds of things. But I'd like to honor our veterans today and say thank you for serving for us and taking care of us. Do we have any veterans left? I know the alderman for the 25th ward.
The alderman from the 22nd is a veteran.
Ward. Yeah. So I just wanted to say thank you to them as well. That's it, sir.
All right, thank you. Alderwoman from the 28th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today is Endangered Species Day, and then we have several endangered species in Missouri that we are celebrating tonight at a free family-friendly concert in Ritz Park. It's sponsored by Missouri Coalition for the Environment and the South Grand Business District. We'll have Fire Dog there. The St. Louis Zoo will be there with a life-size model of an Ozark hellbender. This is one of the largest salamanders in the world. They can get up to be 3 feet. They can live up to 30 years. They absorb toxins in through their skin, which is why water quality is so important, because what happens to the hellbender ultimately happens to us as people. So come on by tonight, 6 to 8 p.m. It'll be in the 15th Ward at Ritz Park on South Grand, 6 to 8 p.m. Bring the kids. It'll be a lot of fun. If it's raining, they'll be across the street at Rooster underneath the covered patio. Thank you, everybody.
All right, thank you. Any further announcements? Any further announcements? Alderman from the 3rd.
Good afternoon. Once again, is it evening yet? Are we there yet? Close.
Right.
All right. Once again, this weekend, this next coming weekend will be the 25th and 26th. We'll be having our first annual Camping in Hyde Park event where fathers and sons will be camping in the park overnight. We'll have life-size Jenga. We'll have, we're trying to get a small little petting zoo out there, but we'll actually we'll have a bonfire outside. It'll be a nice camping event, though. We're trying to bring together the communities and get people to start knowing each other's children and the children to have some type of relationships also. The morning time we'll have a fishing derby. We'll be teaching the children how to gut and scale fish. We'll have the police officers coming. They'll be bringing the helicopters. We'll have a polar there. We'll have horses, ponies. It'll be a nice event. We have we had the Lumiere. They donated 50 tents and 100 sleeping bags to the cause, which we certainly appreciate. We have a few of the unions that have helped out with some things. We have a few older people who's helping out also. Shout out to Dan. He's coming to do some activities with the kids with nature. We have Lisa Middlebrook that's helping out with some of the water and chips. So we just wanted to say we do need a few things. If we can get some tents. But just wanted to put that out there. If anybody has kids, you got nephews, cousins, anybody is open up to the whole city, y'all, please come out next Saturday and Sunday, 25th and 26th. It starts at 4 o'clock and it'll end at about 3 or 5 o'clock the next day on Saturday. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Alderman from the 10th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. This Sunday is the annual Post 15, American Legion Post 15 barbecue on the hill at the corner of Bischoff and Edwards, right across the street from Mama Campese's. If you're looking for something to do on Sunday from 11 to 6, stop on by. And I understand that the Alderman from the 22nd is absent. He's taking a nap so he can wake up and watch the royal wedding at 3 in the morning.
Any further announcements? Any further announcements? Any further announcements? Alderman from the 18th, you recognize on the motion to excuse.
Mr. President, members of the board, I move that the Alderman from the 4th, 13th, and 22nd be excused for necessary absence.
Moved by the Alderman from the 18th, seconded by the Alderman from the 10th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Alderman from the 18th, you recognize on the motion to adjourn.
Mr. President, members of the board, I move that the board adjourns until Thursday, May 24, 10 a.m.
Moved by the Alderman from the 18th, seconded by the Alderman from the 10th. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, we stand adjourned.